good morning. It is still morning, even though it's been a long day already. Welcome to Breakout Room 2, which is talking about standing out in a crowd. My name's Simon Thorpe. I'm the MD of the Expressions Partnership. Effectively, myself and my team help individuals, teams, and organizations improve performance. I'm joined today by two very accomplished professional people, Katie and Katie, which is very confusing for me. So I will refer to these people as Katie W and Katie M for future reference. Let's start with Katie W. Tell us a bit about yourself, would you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie, and I'm the founder and director of Create London. We're a content and personal branding agency, only just about 7 months old now, but we do all things content and personal branding.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Katie M.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Mellor and I'm the Managing Director of Cummins Mellor and CJ UK, which are two recruitment businesses based in Lancashire, and we specialise in industrial, commercial and hospitality recruitment.
Thank you very much. So we will have conversations throughout the next 45 minutes. I can't believe we've only got 45 minutes to talk about standing out in a crowd in the current situation. So what is the current situation? Let's have a quick stock. For those of us who can remember the pre-pandemic world, it seems a long time ago now, we were in an era in the UK of a low unemployment rate for 48 years, which is longer than any one of us have been in business, and probably many people listening into this as well have been in business, so a real issue. Due to migration, political and technological shifts, working with clients in and out the sector myself, I really felt their pain. It was very hard to find anybody, let alone someone with the right skills and talents to do the job. Now, fast forward to 2020, and for the best part of a year, we've seen a completely shifted experience. People were losing jobs, 4.7 million people placed onto furlough, and hundreds of people applying for any roles possible just to put food on the table. And then we come into another different shift. We're now seeing something completely different. And as documented and predicted by the REC report, we are on a massive upturn, and there's a big shift in people's views. So I see this, and we see this, as three main areas for standing out in a crowd. First of all, client organizations need talent to recover and grow, and seemingly at an alarming rate. Candidates are reevaluating their work life and thinking very seriously about what they want to do to fulfill their career ambitions. And recruitment agencies need to attract, train, and retain the right people to make this happen. So I thought we'd kick off with that third piece. How do you stand out in an increasingly crowded market space? There seems to be probably now between 4 and 5 different generations working in your organizations right now. This is nothing new, it's pretty straightforward. And each of them have different sets of values, motivational drivers, communication styles, and expectations. It's almost like the chameleon approach. And organizations have to start thinking differently about how they create the right environment to attract the right people to grow and then retain them. I'm currently working with a number of different recruitment companies, and I'm still shocked today to see Jurassic practices happening and almost bullying leadership tactics that was kind of popular in the 1980s. Never good then, but still happening now. We've got to think completely different. We've got to think how we lead different organizations to get the right people. So one person, I'm sure you've both experienced this, but I know Katie W, you've experienced this firsthand from being a recruiter and being subjected to that kind of environment. So can you share with us your story about where you've come from?
Yeah, of course. Well, I worked in recruitment probably just over 2 years for a very traditional recruitment company. So we used the very same old traditional methods, and that was me cold calling about 200 people a day, which kind of led me to nothing at all, virtually no results. And it's something that I just didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy that whole kind of cold approach. I didn't feel like I'd actually get anywhere, and I didn't feel like I was actually leveraging relationships and actually building anything, of use. So yeah, I kind of had a very sort of samey experience to probably many recruiters out there. And I know a lot of recruiters still now have those same traditional kind of recruitment methods. And for some people it does work, but for me, for instance, it didn't. So I kind of wanted to take a more, consultative approach and just try new different methods of, marketing myself and putting myself out there and building my own personal brand to actually attract those clients and attract those candidates and kind of, share value on what I kind of do. So that's the kind of approach that I decided to take, and that's it's been I've seen some incredible results.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, let's hear more about that a bit later on what results you're getting. Katie M, any comments from your perspective on the way it used to be done and unfortunately still being done in some organisations?
I think I completely echo what Katie was saying, and I've had a similar experience as well, working in that type of environment. And I think what's really important to not underestimate, I mean, it sounds obvious that we've gone through an incredible amount of change over the past 12 to 18 months. And a lot of businesses have adapted really well to that, and the new way of working has become the norm quite quickly, in terms of remote working, agile working, offering things to consultants and team members that would have been unthinkable before have become quite normal quite quickly. And I think actually what is required, and something that we're going through at the moment, is kind of meticulously rewriting the EVP of your company and really kind of analysing what you're actually offering to consultants now, and people that you want to join your business, that is completely different to the kind of old school way of doing things, and not underestimating the value of those offerings. So if you are offering flexible working and agile working, not just kind of accepting that that's the norm these days, like really shouting about it and being very clear that that is something that's really important consideration in your business and something that you really value, because it's quite easy to kind of accept that things have changed and everyone's working in that way. And actually there's quite a lot of talk about people going back to the office full time, and a lot of people don't want that. So yeah, it's really important that we're shouting about the new ways of working, really loudly, so that people know what you're offering as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. We know from obvious statistics that over 50% of the global workforce right now are the millennial generation. I think we're bored of hearing that term, millennials. They're lovely people, they really are, just different. And also Generation Z are coming into the organisation as well. And God help us when Generation Alpha kick in, they're a different breed completely. I have one of those at home, strange breed of child. And they've got different ways of thinking, working. Now, interesting enough, picking up what you said there, Katie M, I'm working with a non-recruitment business at the moment, but they're also in outbound and inbound sales and phone calls. And they asked me about, what is the law at the moment? I said, well, there is no law at the moment. I think that will probably change in the next few days, weeks, months, but there's no law that says you have to allow people to work from home. There's agile working, which has been around for probably at least 1, if not 2 decades. But there seems to be, well, it's my right now to take my children to school, pick them home from school and watch Netflix and all that kind of great. I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. So I asked this organisation to do a bit of a study. So they did, and about a month or 2 later, they figured out that when their employees were actually in the office with their sales team, open office, on the phones, doing what they do really, really well, they were on average 20% more effective and 20% more productive than those people actually working from home. Where on perhaps non-sales type roles, they might be more effective actually at home with less distractions. So all I would say from a point of view of a client or an organization in recruitment is look at your structure, look at your ethos, look at your culture, and what are you doing to make sure that you are adapting to different ways to get the best out of those people? Because you're absolutely right. How do I attract talent? We know, don't we, in the recruitment sector, that people's jobs were non-existent for a while because they had to get rid of some headcounts. And now they're finding it really hard to bring them back in again, because thinking, I don't want that. That was awful. That was painful. Back to KTW's experience. That was awful. So what are you doing? What culturally are you doing? How are you leading people to be the best they can be? And obviously make sure you've got an organization that is effective.
I think that's a really important point that you make, that especially as it feels like it's increasingly difficult to hire good talent for the business internally in terms of consultants and salespeople, it's very tempting to kind of not pander, but try and give people what they think they want and what they're saying they want in terms of complete flexibility and complete ownership of where they work, and that's great, and it's a really important benefit. But I think there's an element of leadership that needs to come in, and for people to say, actually, there is a huge benefit in people coming into the office and collaborating and spending time together, and it doesn't necessarily need to be all day, every day, all week, but actually insisting that we do have a decent amount of time together in a kind of sales environment across the week is really important. And I think that's a case of the leaders of the business being strong to kind of push back and say this is actually imperative. And if we didn't kind of assert ourselves in that way across all of the elements of the business, then it would be absolute chaos. So I think there's a balance to strike, but it's not just about giving everything that's being asked for. We do need to kind of stick to what we believe in as well, and reinforce the importance of working together and collaboration. It's so important that we don't lose that.
Absolutely. It's that hybrid, which again, one of those buzzwords, the hybrid way of working. And whether it's we're in on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and you're in on Tuesday, doesn't really matter. That will come out in the wash, and no one knows what it's going to look like because it's still being formed. So there's a bit of uncertainty and a bit of fear about what do we do, how do we do this? And I think you're absolutely right. It comes down to making sure that the organisation is able to still operate at its maximum potential whilst offering opportunities for a new way of working. I'm about to put something on LinkedIn about normal. I won't go into that too much today, but about, well, what is normal? Normal is only normal because we're used to it. And we've experienced different normals as we've gone on the last 12 to 15 months. Of course we have. But it is absolutely right. There's one organisation I was working with, and they said they had a session of FOMO, fear of missing out. I couldn't believe it. Is it saying to me, like, really? Yeah, I fear that if I'm not going to be in the office with my colleagues, I'll miss out on things. It got me thinking, of course, when we do go into an office or a workplace environment, you'll be having lunch with your colleagues. You might have those water cooler moments, the over the desk. Have you got 2 minutes yet? Great, have a chat, as opposed to dialing in or making a phone call or doing a message of some kind. And that's something we as leaders got to really think about. How do we keep the collaboration going? How do we keep this working in the right direction to make sure it's sustainable, moving forward? Lots to talk about on leadership, that one. Perhaps different to the conversation today, but great conversation so far. Taking this to point, so if we have the right recruiters, we attract the right people, we create the culture that they want to stay in and be awesome and world famous in doing, and we're leading the 21st century, what do we need to do to stand out in this crowded place? So how can agencies, I'll go to KTM if I can for a moment, and then KW afterwards. How can agencies still nurture client relationships in this seemingly candidate-driven market? What are your views?
This is a really interesting question, because we're in a sector, specifically in hospitality, where there are chronic candidate shortages, and the natural thing that you want to do as the market opens up and the business kind of opens up again is to get back in touch, or revisit the client relationships that we've had previously when the businesses weren't fully closed, and we want to get back in touch with those clients. But what we're actually finding is every time we reach out to a customer, they give us lots of jobs to work on, and we can't necessarily always fill them, to be quite honest. So it's like, how do you keep that, nurture that relationship and keep that relationship going when you can't always kind of satisfy the needs that they have in that moment right there and then. And I think there's a few different things that we're trying to do, especially to keep that relationship going. I think one of them is being really consultative with them, being incredibly honest about the state of the market, and actually sharing some kind of data and market analysis of actually what's going on, so they can see the truth about the reality of it. It's not just a case of, oh, we can't fill your jobs. And it's not just them who are struggling to recruit. I think giving that that industry insight really kind of presents you as a professional and incredibly credible in the market. And I think on that kind of theme, being consultative, I think it's really important that we continue to challenge what the clients think they need from that piece of recruitment. And I think we've got some sort of stat that about 50% of the candidates that we place, particularly on a perm basis, are what we call the wildcard option. So it's not necessarily what the client thought they wanted on paper when they started out the recruitment process. And I think continuing to challenge that perception of what the client thinks they want opens up a whole pool of potential candidates that they were potentially excluding before, but it also, you know, raises your credibility with the client that, you know, you really are an expert in recruitment, and you can kind of push the boundaries of what's possible, really. So I think that being consultative and building that trust with the clients is incredibly important. And then I think, you know, just generally, you know, asking clients for their advice as well, and you know, just engaging in that conversation. You know, people love to be asked their advice, and you know, they ask questions about their knowledge about things. So I think just generally, you know, keeping that communication going, even if you know, we can't satisfy all of their needs right here, right now. And it's a very extreme example in the hospitality industry, but it is a reality for many businesses, and it is for us at the moment. So it's important that we talk about it, because you can't always fill every single job that a client gives you.
And it isn't almost like they want it tomorrow. So having a year of like, yeah, call us in a few months' time, suddenly now get it done. I've noticed, I'm noticing as well for learning and development. Can you come and train our managers now? Yeah, sure, why not? I'm just sitting here waiting for your phone call. It's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ugh. Okay, so it's about being different, about standing out, and the relationship you have with the client. So KTW, how the hell do we do this in a market that's so crowded? There's so much noise and so much white noise. I mean, if we've seen one free webinar on LinkedIn, we've seen 1 million, especially in the last 6 to 12 months. What is it about the personal branding of an organization, and what tips would you give an organization to make sure they genuinely stand out and they're not just melted into everyone else's views and opinions?
Yeah, I think to be honest, like in a marketing and social sense, that, you know, there are thousands and thousands of recruiters out there, kind of all specializing in the same sort of industry or the same sort of niche. So, you know, branding and building your own personal brand, yes, you have to market your business, but you also have to, you know, you have to market yourself, and you have to, you know, build your own personal brand, because at the end of the day, especially with recruitment, people buy from people. And in, you know, in a marketing sense, building a brand is so much more than, you know, a super slick logo or a really nice branding design or a lovely website. There's just so much more than that. If you really want to build trust and credibility with your, you know, your clients and your candidates, and you want to build that perception of, you know, what you stand for, what your values are, what you specialize in, then building your personal brand is just, you know, a great way to do that. And, you know, instead of kind of having that whole traditional kind of sales approach, you know, instead sharing, you know, value added content, which your network can kind of engage with if you are connected with your clients on LinkedIn. And you're constantly building that perception through content on, you know, the problems that you solve, the value that you provide, what you specialize in, what your expertise within the market. It's just a great way to build that kind of perception and build that, you know, trust and credibility with your audience. Because at the end of the day, recruiters, you know, me, for instance, I get cold calls now by hundreds of recruiters, and to be honest, I'll only work with a recruiter that I want to work with in terms of, you know, the relationship that we have. If, you know, I feel that they can, you know, satisfy, you know, what I need. So yeah, it's just about sort of building that relationship and building that whole persona of what you do and what you kind of specialize in.
Okay, let me throw a curveball here a little bit then. There's often, I get bombarded, and I'm sure everyone else on this, listen to this does, with people on LinkedIn who want to connect with you and then jump onto you as soon as you go connect, and they try and ram a sales pitch down your throat. I just go, you've disconnected, you've shown up and thrown up, enough. But how many people on LinkedIn are claiming that I can give you 1,000 leads and I can double your business overnight? How much of it is real and how much of it is BS? I mean, come on, help us out here.
Yeah, I know, 100%. I mean, I get the same cold LinkedIn messages all the time. And to be honest, like I've never tried any kind of lead gen or any kind of tool or any kind of company that can kind of help me generate inbound leads. I mean, to be honest, since I started my own business about 7 months ago, I've managed to build it on 100% inbound leads just by sharing content and engaging with my network across LinkedIn. So I completely agree with the fact, you know, I still get those sort of cold messages as soon as you connect with someone. It is very irritating, and I'm never going to reply. Like, I'm not going to do it. So that's why, you know, that's something I completely stay clear of. Instead, I'll connect with maybe a decision maker who I think that, you know, I'd love to work with that company. I'd love to work with that brand. And then instead of actually kind of reaching out to them and saying, you know, I'm Katie, this is what I do, this is how I can help you, I'm sharing value-added content. I'm sharing content on the problems that I solve. So I'm constantly showing up. So when those people come to my LinkedIn page, they can see, oh, actually, that's, you know, I really need that. Maybe I'll contact her, or, you know, so it's just about selling, but not direct selling. But yeah, I completely agree. I don't believe in that whole cold sales approach. But then again, like, I know a lot of people do that kind of lead gen kind of stuff, and they invest a lot of, you know, invest in doing that quite a lot. But to be honest, it's never kind of been an interest for me, because I don't like that approach personally. But
I think what a really good example of how powerful your approach is, Katie, is that we've never met before until last week when we did the prep for this session, and we all went away from it, and I fell into the trap of posting something on LinkedIn with a picture saying, oh, I'm really looking forward to doing this session, the REC, and tagged both of you guys into it. And then you posted something about it a few hours later, and you'd done a really considered post, and it was really honest, and it was really authentic about the fact that, I hope you don't mind me saying, but it was, you were quite nervous about it because you were speaking in front of a lot of people, and it honestly I was able to relate to that so much more, and it was so much more credible and authentic than just the generic quick thing that I'd thrown on there, not really thinking about it. And I actually almost considered taking mine off and redoing it, because yours was so much better. And I genuinely thought, if I ever want any help with that type of thing, I would definitely reach out to Katie to help me with it, because she clearly knows what she's doing. And I think you're so right about that kind of sharing the considered content and building that kind of authenticity and the empathy with the people that you're trying to speak to. It's so powerful. It is so much better than that kind of direct sales approach.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, like, I still see posts, you know, people that are just sharing company content and just sharing kind of content for the sake of it. Whereas I feel that, you know, when you're sharing your own content, it should be authentic, it should be personal. If you're absolutely bricking yourself about something, then you should be able to say it, because that's what you resonate with, and you want to talk as if you're talking to a normal person. You're not just, you know, just pushing it out there for the sake of it. So it's so important to be, you know, authentic and, you know, be your honest self, because that is what people can kind of resonate with, and, you know, people can, you know, that's what they want to engage with. So, yeah.
I would honestly urge everyone who's watching this just to go and have a look at and connect with Katie on LinkedIn, because if you actually just look back at the posts that she does, you know, regularly, it's all just an example of what she's talking about here. It's incredibly powerful, and you can, you know, she's practicing what she preaches, and it clearly is working because you're getting the inbound leads from it.
So and you've given a few tips there about, I echo the point about authenticity. I mean, geez, working with business leaders, there's enough evidence out there now that suggests followership is more important than leadership, right? If you want to be a leader, you've got to have followers, otherwise you're not a leader, you're a wannabe. Think about it. And actually, with that point, they're saying we want to see authenticity and trustworthiness in our leaders. Gone are the days are the big, brash, male, stale and pale kind of, seriously, give it up. And this generation coming in, and the existing generation of recruiters, are looking for something different. And obviously the social space and the social networking space, this is really big, because that's their main medium of communication. That's what they look at, and we're all doing it more often now. Are there any a couple of tips or a handful of tips, Katie W, that you could sort of give us, or give anyone here, about creating the content? And we've got the authenticity piece, but what else?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it just comes down to, you know, a number of factors. It's about creating content around what you want to be known for. So, you know, for instance, on LinkedIn, I talk a lot about personal branding. I talk a lot about video production, content creation, how to market your business, because they're all the things that I want to be known for. So it's about creating content, you know, around what you want to be known for, how you can provide value, you know, the problems that you solve. And it's also a massive part of, you know, building your personal brand, and that, you know, which is in turn going to then bin your, build your whole business brand. It's kind of, it's about being consistent, to be honest. And to be honest, the end goal, it really does depend on what your goal is. You know, do you want to generate more inbound leads? Do you want to attract more candidates? Do you want to attract more clients? Do you want to be seen as a leader to try and attract new employees? It really does depend on what the end goal is. But I would say my top tips are: create value-added content around what you want to be known for, be consistent with it, and also engage with your network, like, you know, that you're connected with them for a reason. So it's so important to, be active on there, share your insights with your target audience, and kind of just, that will then build your brand, it'll build your personal brand. And it'll benefit you in so many different ways. So but yeah, the most important thing when you are creating the content that you're sharing is be authentic, be personal, and avoid sharing boring stuff that no one wants to read and direct sales approach posts, because I think there's too much of that on LinkedIn. So I think it's good for people to be personal as much as they can. Yeah.
And tagging other people and referencing other people's posts.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely something that you can do. As long as you're not doing it purely for the fact because you want to get engagement. If you actually are sharing posts and you want to tag your clients or your candidates, then that's an amazing way to kind of, push it out there as well. But yeah, there are a number of different and if anyone does want to sit down with me and they can learn all about personal branding and how to do it, and if they want some valuable tips, then I'm more than happy to have a conversation with anyone if they are actually looking to build their personal brand across LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Just something you mentioned there, and both you mentioned the authenticity. Something that's the whole well-being agenda is huge, right? So we talk about attracting the right people who can work in our organization, especially in recruitment. How do we create this culture of well-being so people actually want to feel comfortable working there, whilst not being, I use the probably dated phrase now, the snowflake perspective anymore, but the whole well-being place where we've got an opportunity to create an environment where people feel they can do really, really well, they can talk to people and so on. One of the things, and there's a video on the on demand. I put a video on there that's there today. I've seen it myself, called "How to Handle and Deal with Imposter Syndrome." It's a massive thing, and then people often, the amount of executives we're working with and have worked with over the years who seem to have this condition. It's not like it's some sort of disease. Everyone has it at some point in their lives. So it's how you work through it. So is it a comparison thing? Because often with social media, we know from research, we're comparing our brand with other people's brands, or our posts with their posts. And if someone puts a post saying, "Oh, we're amazing, we've done this, we've had this client feedback," people think, "Oh, well, we're not that good and we're not as good as them." So with those situations, how do we then put our post as not just like a war against your competitors, but it's something of content that means something of value?
Yeah, that's something generally you want to steer away from. I think I was super guilty of it when I first started my business. I would always compare myself to other people that had started their own content agencies or marketing agencies. And I would have a constant battle of myself thinking, I want to be what they're, where they are and what they're doing. But that's just something that you can't really compete with. Don't look at, where you were yesterday, look at where you are today. And it's just about, being yourself and just not worrying about what other people do. Obviously, you do have to look at your competitors and look at what they're doing. But I always say, look at your competitors and look at what they're doing and do the complete opposite. Like, it's just about being different. So, sharing different stuff. I know a lot of recruitment companies will tend to post infographics and blogs and articles, which is all brilliant. But it's just about finding those different mediums, making sure you're covering everything in terms of how people kind of consume content. Everyone, either reads, listens, or watches content. So if you're kind of covering all of those mediums, then that's the kind of best way to be different and kind of stand out from those competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one phrase you said there, and I often wear t-shirts with slogans on them. I've got a little micro t-shirt. I don't wear this t-shirt, it's way too small, but here's one of my favorite sayings that we came up with.
Oh my goodness.
I love that.
I can't read it.
Sorry, do it or don't do it, just don't whinge about it. You know, obviously a very small t-shirt, but you get the idea. But one of the favorite t-shirts I have is, back to your point there, is what other people think about you is none of your business.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter as long as you are you. And as you said before, be authentic and stand up for yourself. It's great.
Yeah, I think the main problem, one of the main problems I find that when I'm speaking with potential clients that want to build their personal brand across LinkedIn, a lot of their kind of worries are, oh, I don't know, you know, what to post. I don't know, you know, if that's the wrong thing to say. And it's, you know, sometimes it's a bit of a confidence thing, and it's like, and some people have these ideas, they have these different things that they want to talk about and, you know, that they're super passionate about, but it's just about drawing that creativity out of them, and, you know, coming up with content that actually really does show their personality, you know, and it's authentic to them. And to be honest, it's sometimes quite difficult for me, especially if I'm stepping into their shoes and I'm, you know, trying to create content around what they want to be known for. But I'm obviously in a completely different space. So it, you know, it comes down to my clients really trusting in what I do, us building that relationship together. So I really understand, you know, how they kind of want to portray themselves. But it is a massive thing at the start. It's a massive, you know, it's a huge confidence thing, but it's just about, just who cares? Try it. If it doesn't work, try something else. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just about doing it and be consistent with it and just see what happens.
Yeah,
I think that really ties in with what you were just mentioning about imposter syndrome and also authenticity. I think the two are really, really linked. And I think the more actually you push yourself to be honest and true to yourself, the more actually you get that kind of positive feedback from other people, and you care less about, it's not that you care less about what they think, but actually you get people kind of latching onto it. I mean, throughout the past year, obviously it's been incredibly difficult from a business perspective, but I actually had a baby as well in lockdown. So my whole world changed from that perspective. And then my relationship with my work changed because I was juggling, you know, a lot more that I wasn't used to pre-COVID. And one of the things that I wanted to do when I came back to work quite early after having my baby, but I really wanted to go to a mum and baby yoga class on a Monday with all the mums that I'd met on my maternity leave. And the first couple of weeks, I decided to go to it on a Monday, and I'd leave work, go to it, and then come back. So I'd go out for an hour. And the first couple of weeks, I just said to my team, oh, I've got an appointment, and I didn't tell them what it was about. And then after the first 2 weeks, I thought, I hate lying to them. It's really important to me that I go to this class because I'm a new mom and I'm, you know, I've gone back to work really early. But I hate lying to them. So I actually just came out with it after the third week and said, this is what I'm doing on a Monday at 11 o'clock. And actually the feedback that I got was really positive from my team. It wasn't like, oh, my boss is going out to do some class, you know, what the hell. They were really, really supportive of me and encouraging. And actually that then inspired me to think, how can I incorporate this culture into the wider business so that, you know, my team can feel like they could experience that if they really wanted to, if that was what was important to them in that time in their life. So actually, when you embrace that authenticity and that honesty and you just put it out there, it can inspire so much more. And that's really important to me in building that and changing the culture of my business so that people could actually have that if they wanted, or something else that was important to them as well.
That is absolutely imperative, and you know, great for doing it. Fantastic. There is, again, the video on imposter syndrome is on there. I share 10 tips of how to work with and overcome it. So by all means, have a look if you want to. There's about a 20-minute video. You can break it up if you want to in small bits. But it brings me to something you just mentioned there that sparked an idea in my head. And I want to talk about candidates before we finish there. I really do. But it's similar because it's about, do I feel well? Let me share with you a very quick exercise, and it's bang on what you said there, Katie. If I get people sometimes to have Post-it notes on each Post-it note, write one thing that makes up you. So your physical health, your psychological health, the MD, the recruiter, the mother, whatever it might be, if you follow a certain team or whatever it is, and each post-it note's got one of these things on. Then I ask my clients to put them in order of importance. And often people put things like, oh, family or mother or company. No. Which one of these gets you in the right headspace to be the best at everything else? And that's your psychological health. Now, I don't call it mental health. I have an issue with the term mental health because it conjures up different connotations. I once spoke at a conference on mental health, and I was a keynote speaker, and I said, here's an idea, let's stop calling it mental health. Well, there you go. But the whole thing was, when you're in the right headspace, and for you, it's that Monday, 11 o'clock?
Yeah, but not anymore, but it was, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
But for you, that's a really important thing. So again, genuine question, were you in the right headspace to go back to work an hour later and do a great piece of work?
Yeah, absolutely. And it arguably like better than I would have been if I hadn't gone, because I spent time with my daughter. I'd done yoga, which is really important to me. I'd done, some breathing, which is really important to me. And I went back to work and just smashed it in the afternoon. So yeah.
So I know we're just talking a bit sort of generic here, but this is about a culture, finding a culture that works for each individual to make sure you can create this. And this will attract the right people. And if you attract the right people, they attract the right clients and candidates, because it's behavior breeds behavior. It's what happens.
And what's interesting about it is that culture pre-COVID, that would never have happened. No. And it feels like it's more accessible now, and actually it's something that I think is really important that I continue to, and I'm not there yet with my business and my team, but it's something that I'm aspiring to get to, and I'm just trying out different things myself to, a bit of trial and error, and that was definitely something that I'm going to take forward. But it comes back to that, like being true to yourself, being authentic, and just doing what you think is right and not what you think you should be doing. Like, oh, I'm the MD of the business, I should be there, every hour of the day, all day, every day. And actually that's not always the case.
No. You'll be surprised that we have a platform for wellbeing, and companies are pushing back. We say, we're advising you to give your employees at least an hour a week to focus on their wellbeing. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole platform, videos and exercises and all that kind of thing to look at. Oh, I can't do that. What, an hour? 1 hour? If you can give and I'm talking like 15 minutes times 4 days, okay, maximum really. If you can't do that, you're not giving your people the right opportunity to be world famous for you. In fact, they're probably feeling under distress, more anxiety, more worry, all these things we know about, and they're not going to do the right job for you. They're not going to put out decent posts on social media. They're not going to answer the phone or make a phone call really useful. They're going to be quite short-tempered with clients and candidates. Does that behavior help you achieve your goal? Think about it. Talking of behavior, let's talk about candidates. Obviously, we're in a candidate-led market now, which who thought we'd be saying that about 12 months ago when the complete shift happens. So candidates have lots more opportunities now to choose whether it's to engage with an agency or to go for interviews and all this kind of thing. So KTM, from your experience, and you're working in a very difficult sector with food and beverage, hospitality, catering, and so on. Talk us through some of the things that you're doing to help attract the right candidates and have that relationship with them.
Yeah, well, we are working within hospitality, which is incredibly pressured at the moment, but we also work in commercial and industrial sectors, which equally are kind of candidate as well. So this applies to lots of different sectors, but I think for me it comes down to 3 main areas. I think the first is almost going back to basics, and I know we've talked about we don't want to go back in time to the dark ages, but I think the basics of recruitment are really important to remember, and not assuming that a candidate knows what you're going to do for them, and really kind of selling the benefits to the client of the candidate as to what they're going to get by working with you as that particular consultant or you as that particular agency. Talking to them about what you're going to do for them, which clients you're going to introduce them to, telling them about roles that aren't available on the open market, that they're only going to get access to if they, represented by you as their recruitment consultant, and actually thinking about how we can improve the recruitment experience for them as a candidate by using new technology like video interviewing. A lot of people have been using video interviewing and trying it out, and I think a lot of focus is placed on selling the benefit of that to the client, but actually there's huge benefits to the candidate as well in terms of saving time and not having to go to multiple interviews and speeding up the kind of time to getting an offer. So I think really going back to basics on that kind of candidate part of the recruitment process and building that relationship with them and really selling to them what they're going to get by working with you as a consultant is incredibly important. And then the second thing is about understanding where your candidates are sort of hanging out from a predominantly social media perspective, I would say. So if you take chefs as an example, there's a huge community of chefs on Facebook. They're all engaged in chef groups. They're all kind of chatting about the chef world, even when they're outside of their kind of professional work environment. So it's really important that we are involved in those conversations and we're building those relationships with those candidates consistently on that platform. And it's not traditionally a professional platform. And it's really important that we're mirroring the tone and the language and you know, the way that they want to be communicated to on that platform. So where before we might have been a bit kind of shiny and corporate and professional, and you know, it's really kind of relaxing that language and softening it. So really something as simple as using emojis in your posts and things, from a business perspective, some people are like horrified, but actually it's really, really important that we're mirroring the language that's being used in those kind of social groups on those platforms, and also having the confidence to know that you don't have to have like coverage on every single platform to engage with candidates. It's just knowing where your candidates are hanging out and just going kind of hell for leather on that one, and not worrying if your Twitter content isn't amazing, because if there's no chefs on Twitter, then what's the point? So I think having that confidence to really go for it, and we've got people full-time on Facebook as, like, you know, sourcing candidates, and that's what's important to our kind of audience. And then I think the third point I just wanted to quickly mention was about just really, you know, analysing the technology in the business at the moment, and really understanding that as we've gone through this kind of COVID experience, everyone's expectations in terms of using technology has risen so much. And I think where in the past we might have been able to get away with, you know, paper timesheets, just as an example, now candidates are expecting to be able to, you know, access an app or do their timesheets online in a really kind of quick and seamless way. And that's a kind of minimum expectation of candidates. So I think things like candidate portals, online timesheets, having the access to the technology that's kind of giving those candidates that added value is really important. And, you know, it's accelerated in the past year, but it's more important than ever. So yeah, a few things to think about there.
Yeah, brilliant. So again, it sounds obvious, of course it does, but it's very important to remember it's you working for the candidate as much as you are working for the client. Now, there's
not more so, if not more so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I am your personal kind of coach, helping you get the job that you really want to get, and I'm going to work for you. I'm not just working to fill a vacancy that I've got to fill with an X amount of time. Really important that. And chefs hang out on Facebook. I didn't know that. Imagine the conversations they must have on Facebook, those chefs together. Bizarre.
Yeah, it's a very interesting world.
I bet it is. But again, you're absolutely right. It's finding out where they hang out, as it were. And if they hang out on Facebook, let's make sure we have a conversation with those people and make sure you can tap into that network. Interesting. With regards, again, to attracting candidates, there's so much out there, so many people saying they look after you. You've mentioned things here, but are there any kind of tips and techniques? I'll give you an example. On the video I mentioned earlier, I talk about, with 4.7 million people coming out of furlough, some unfortunately in the next few months might not have jobs to go to. So I'm kind of predicting you might see an increase in available candidates in the marketplace, because as soon as the money dries up, the company says, sorry, there's no job for you. Hope it isn't the case, of course, but that might well happen. There's something about not just helping candidates with their standard CV, but it's also with their confidence at interview, because many of them haven't been interviewing for generations. And the reason I say this is because we're doing some work, outplacement work, helping organizations that have got too many jobs for people, and we're helping these people find jobs. So anyone out there who's got vacancies for anyone in health and safety, environmental engineering, I've got a few candidates potentially for you, so I'll see what I can do. But it isn't. It's about making sure that you help them boost their confidence to get ready for an interview, whereas before they might not have done it. Do any of you two, we've got 1 minute to go, any sort of last minute tips on how you can help people boost confidence for interviews and get them ready?
I think it's about thinking about what else we can offer the candidates, like you say, not just CV advice. So one of the things that we offer as a service to our candidates and our clients as well, actually, is doing some work by doing maybe like a psychometric profile and talking that through with them, so they really understand, you know, who they are as a person, what's important to them, and just taking that time to then have a conversation about them as an individual. And even a session like that can really boost someone's confidence, because I mean, it comes back to the authenticity and really knowing what your kind of truth is, and being, you know, proud of that. That can give someone so much confidence to just be themselves in an interview and just raise. It's not about having the perfect answer to a question, but if you've got that kind of self-confidence in yourself, it will really help you in an interview situation. So that's something that we've been doing more of as we've come out of the COVID and the COVID world, and I think we'll continue to do it.
Okay, sure. Fantastic, thank you. KW, any last minute thoughts from you?
I think we're almost pretty much out of time, but yes, if it's just my advice with any candidate, go into any interview and treat it like a conversation, not an interview. Be yourself, and yeah, that's probably my best tip.
Fantastic. Well, great. Thank you very much. Katie and Katie, thank you so much. Love to chat with you. I hope everyone's listening in and got some tips and ideas to write down and take forward with them. You can get in contact with any of us, all three of us. Our details are on this platform, so please. We've now got a 30-minute break, I've been informed to tell you, so please do check out the exhibitor booths, visit the event chat and look at some of the on-demand videos, all available for you, and then come back to the live stage at 1:10 for the second panel discussion. Wish you all the very best. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a good time. Katie and Katie, thank you very much. We'll catch up soon. See you best. Take care.